Thank you. I'm Dorothée de Krop. I'm Executive Officer of HEXATRUST. I'm really glad to be here with you today. HEXATRUST is a professional association gathering startup and SMEs proposing cybersecurity and cloud confidence services and solutions. So we're really happy to be here today to talk with you, to have an happy moment about European sovereignty and the state of urgency we consider we are in. And actually, to share this moment with you, I'm happy to welcome Luc Dursault, CEO of Atempo, and Etienne Lecoq, Sales and Marketing Officer and board member of Antemeta. Both of them are really active members of HEXATRUST. I'm really happy for that too. So we'll lead the stage and we will present you a few data, and then we will invite you to ask any question you feel in front of the audience. Thank you.
Okay. So we would like to address the data sovereignty through the data protection angle. We believe that many companies and organizations have been attacked by crypto lockers. So we gathered some figures in order to give you an overview of the situation. So over 2021, it's over 55% of the organization which have been attacked by a ransomware or a crypto locker, meaning all the information system has been blocked by an hacker. What we've seen as a survey, the average cost of an attack is about $1.85 million. Okay. So the cost for the organization of this attack is $1.85 million. The average ransom which have been paid, mainly using crypto locker like crypto money, like Bitcoin, for example, is about $170,000. And all the companies which have been attacked have lost more than 35% of their data. When you take all these figures into consideration, you see that all the companies which have been able to face such attack needed to recover the data from the backup solution. Do you all know what is a backup solution? Sure? Okay. So 87% of the company have recovered from the backup. That's why I want to address today how the backup is key in the sovereignty and how urgent and how imperative it is to have such a company within Europe able to perform the recovery. So basically, you've got three pillars to the backup. First of all, you have to anticipate. The question is not if you will be attacked or not. It's just when, because like you have seen, more than 50% of the company have been attacked last year. Okay, so basically, all our organization gonna be attacked this year or next year. So be prepared, anticipate, meaning analyze and verify all your data, and we will see after where your data can be localized. Then protect this data depending of their importance for your organization. At some point, some files may not be useful, but some very critical info for your last solution will be very critical. Okay? So you need to protect this workload through the right solution. And then guarantee and ensure, meaning you need to test this. Many backups are performed without being tested, meaning when you are facing the crash, then you try to recover and it's not working because the data was not able to be recovered and maybe inconsistent. Okay. So the data sovereignty approach can be explained as many companies need to develop their information system very quickly. They use some SaaS solution. For example, all you can find with Salesforce, Microsoft, Google, Amazon. All these providers are providing many solutions that you need to use to stay innovant. But also in the same time, you still have some on-premise solution, for example, with old system that you are used to protect them for 20, 30 years. The difference between these two systems are there is a massive change in the way to protect the data if the data is on the cloud or if the data is on-premise. And the sovereign approach is being able to protect the data whatever it's on the cloud or whatever it's on-premise. And we have an example, and there is many cases that when customer put data at Microsoft, for example, they believe the data is protected. But in fact, the data is not protected. And if you read all let's say the small line in the contract of Microsoft is not responsible of the data. Microsoft is responsible of the service. If you ask for a mail system, Microsoft will answer you the ability to send email, not the ability to recover your email. Okay? So it's the responsibility of the user to protect their data. And that's why with Atempo and Antemeta, we've developed a solution in order to protect all these workloads across the traditional on-premise system and the public cloud system to provide an hybrid solution, because today the world is hybrid and being sovereign is not being completely closed over other technology, because you need to stay competitive to benefit from the innovation from these vendors like Microsoft, Google, Amazon, which are already ahead. But also keep in mind that you will need to protect them and test the protection with having a recovery plan. Okay, maybe. Okay.
Thank you, Etienne. Before we go on for question, I will first of all ask Luc, is it as well, we just consider for the past few months that we talk about a lot about European sovereignty in the digital aspect, and we also have a new minister in France, even if we are talking about European sovereignty, but is dealing now, I mean, with the digital sovereignty also in his wallet, I will say. Do you think it still has sense to work for this European sovereignty?
Well, I believe there are two steps. The first step is what I call the eye-opening. That means that it's a growing awareness of the dependence we have on foreign technologies. That was the first step. And this step is behind us now. We have seen a lot of advances of the political class, of the private and public organizations, as well as most of our European citizens. Now, I think it's time for the action. That means that's the second step. We have to move forward. We have to take actions. And it's a difficult one because we have to make choices. I think that there is consensus on the fact that only the United States today are able to achieve their sovereign digital sovereignty. Why? Because they have all they own the toolbox, the necessary toolbox, to have all the bricks necessary to their digital sovereignty. I mean, data, massive amount of data collected by the NSA or the GAFAMs. Second, the applications, Palantir, Microsoft, digital transformation platforms. Third, the operating systems. Fourth, the servers, most of them being conceived in the United States and or China. And I would add the networks, which are important, plus the energy to operate and also cool down those servers. So should it be land, should it be even satellite networks? They have all the bricks, all the toolbox. Is Europe able to fight against that? At this stage, no. Is that too late? No, again. Why? Because I think this is an ongoing process. Technological history is made of ruptures, disruption. And I think we shouldn't give up because the main disruptions are to come. And also, the biggest volume of data in the B2B sector is still to come also. That's why I think it's still time to move.
Yeah, we say that we're only producing only 2% of the data that will be available in the next year. So actually, the future is just right away.
I agree. It's like, it's like asking a marathon runner to give up because he didn't make the good start of the first mile. It's the same story. Why should we give up? I mean, we have 2% of the data available that we will have in the 15 or 20 coming years. We shouldn't give up.
Okay, and actually the European sector has proved to have lots of good brands and people willing to go on also. Etienne, what do you think about this state of emergency also?
Thank you. I totally agree with Luc. In fact, you made it a comparison to the Moore law that every 18 months the data will double. Which is true, and since the 60s, this law is still in function. We are not able to compete in all the area in the same at the same time, which is true. I think we need to define our key areas, our priorities, and for my standpoint and the one we are sharing is to focus on the data, because if you lose a server or a storage unit, you can buy a new one or you can repair it. If your data center burns, okay, you can rebuild it. If you lose your data, there is no way to get it back, and all the intelligence, all the artificial intelligence you will build in the future will be based on the past. So we see how key it is to protect this asset.
Thank you, Etienne. Some people will be willing to say that, well, compared to the US and China, well, we are far away from them, and it's maybe time to give up what is a European strategy. First of all, what do you think of it? And if it's not the way we have to handle, what steps we can go forward to be able to build this European strategy in concrete?
It's a difficult question. It's a difficult question because to act, we need a grid of analysis. And at this stage, we have no real inventory of the technological and political assets that we have in the digital for European digital sovereignty. So I would say that nobody knows at this stage. I think we have to move to make it possible to have this grid of analysis as soon as possible. Because if we have no analysis, we cannot move forward. So that would be my first recommendation. The second recommendation, as I said, is not to spread over resources all along the line. It's just, I think it's common sense, especially in the Eurosatory, that it's a military concept to focus and put all the resources on the narrower border. And this narrow border would be, for me, the most critical assets that we need to have. That would be the first steps for this digital sovereignty.
Etienne, what is your thought about it?
For me, there is two aspects. I will share with you an experience of last week. Maybe some of you have been there. Last week in Lille, you had the International Forum of Cybersecurity. So it was the opportunity to join and share with 13,000 professionals of the IT cybersecurity for France and Europe. And there I've been two topics that could answer your question. First of all the training and the school in order to provide this industry with the appropriate talent. The first step of the sovereignty is having the people able to develop on the technology from your country. And I've seen there people which was launching their school. So every year it will be 100 IT cybersecurity specialists you will have in addition. So this is my first point, so which is training. And the second point for me is the public order. For me, the government, public organization, I see the army, and such organization need to trust local company because their massive budget can allow us to develop and build a very sovereign solution by financing the technological team. So for me, the two topics are education on cybersecurity and sovereignty, and also public order to develop European champion.
Thank you, Etienne. Maybe it's time first to ask this, if you have any question first. Not yet? Okay, I will go on.
Even if it's in French, it's okay.
What could be, Luc, the most profitable action that our state, or maybe at the European level, what kind of decision could make the path toward the sovereignty, the European sovereignty? Is the public order so massive way to transform either all of our states as a kind of engine to promote the digital transformation of our society? Should we compare this request of European sovereignty as also a key moment to also develop the digital transformation of Europe also?
Well, definitely the public orders are powerful leverage. I mean, it's not new. It's working well in China. It's working well in the United States. But I would say that we have to find a new way of collaborating with the public powers. Why? Because I regard this alignment of interest between public authorities and the private sector as a real threat. When there is an alignment, what I call the squid game, I call it the squid game, there is a clear alignment today between the public authorities in the United States and the private sector. Why? Because there are laws, there is a framework of law making it possible to read the data everywhere in the world. That's the law, that's the Cloud Act. Then there is a second step. The second step is give public orders to tech players, making it possible for them to become unicorn or decacorns in less than 20 years. But doing that, there is a form of compromission between the public authorities and the private sector. That means that you cannot say no to the public authorities when they make 50% of revenues. So it's a very, I think, it's a real threat for the democracy. And I think we have to find a new way in Europe for this public and private cooperation. The third thing is there are a few domains where it's time to move because it's worthless to wait. Education. We made a major mistake in Europe with mathematics, making them optional at a certain stage of education. That was a disaster. That was a disaster for the whole technological sector. So one of the first steps we have to make is make again mathematics and physics attractive at school, because we need those talents. The second is legislation. I think we are good in Europe at legislation. We made it for on the air, in the seas, on the land. I don't see why we couldn't make it in the digital economy. It's another space. It's overwhelming space, but I think we have proven our ability to regulate this space with the GDPR. with a few regulations like DSA or DMA. We are good at legiferating. And the third one is also a different way of thinking the world for freedom. And I think that's those three components are the one we should work on to collaborate more closer between public and private.
Thank you, Luc. And Etienne, what about you?
I think, as Luc said, at a certain level, it's true that being so linked between states and the private sectors can lead to some, let's say, to some deviancy. But I think at the scale we are in Europe, we could benefit from a bit more push, if I may. We used to have some champion in the past. I want to talk, for example, about Bull, which is a part of the IT history. I used to start my career there. We used to have some champion in the network field with Alcatel, for example. And what we can see today is that all these champion has just been bought by some US company after being attacked through extraterritorial rules like FCPA rules. We face the same situation in the industry with Alstom. We had the opportunity to meet people like Frédéric Pierucci, which have been in prison in the US for 2 years during General Electric acquisition of Alstom without having done anything, only by application of the Foreign Corruption Patriot Act, which is the FCPA, an extraterritorial American law. And what we see today is that it's not only a matter of private company, it's a matter of states. And the ANSSI, which is a National Cybersecurity Agency over France, is explaining that 80% of all the attack to European organizations are coming from states, not coming from individuals. So at some point, it's not only a matter of company of being protected on the land. States are protecting them citizens, and we are entering a phase that the state will have to protect the citizen in the digital area. And to me, this need to have some industrial able to provide them, with people and technology.
Thank you, Etienne. You're telling us that finally securizing digital market and digital sovereignty is also a question of geopolitical aspects. I have one question. How can your solutions, services and softwares can finally contribute to this European sovereignty?
You mean as a tempo? Okay. Okay.
The kind of solutions you're dealing with.
All right. So we are a backup software vendor, a French backup software vendor. So as Etienne said before, it's the last fence when all the barriers have been destroyed. So it's the only way you can recover from a major disaster and also resume activity as soon as possible. So zero data loss on the one hand, zero interruption or downtime on the second hand. Why should you choose a sovereign solution for that? For the simple reason that it's the last fence. So if you look at the situation, which is more and more tricky at the world level today, for instance with Russia, if you buy a solution coming from Russia with no control on the codes, then you have a real problem because you are asking the people attacking you to help you restore your data. So that may be the problem. So it's very easy to have a patch, you know that, an update in the codes. So you absolutely need, for your last fence, to have a code of trust. I mean, that's the first thing. So security, code of trust. You can ask people attacking you to restore you. That doesn't work. The second thing, for me, is not the security, it's the confidentiality. We would be naive, I think we would be really naive, to think that the ECPA regulations is only to fight against terrorism. It's a powerful weapon for the war, an economical war. The ability to read the data where they are, and in data protection, in backup, you have all the assets. You are able to access to an email, you are able to access to a database, you are able to access to unstructured data, a file, whatever. So you can know the decision cycle better than the organization chart, because you know what's going on if you have access to those data. So I would say security and confidentiality are the two main reasons why you need a sovereign solution, absolutely, for backup.
And if I may, Luc, I would add reversibility. In fact, because today we are not able to provide a very powerful, for example, email solution at the level of Microsoft Exchange. We do have solutions, but they are not mature yet. But maybe, yeah.
Dear exhibitors,
We'll wait.
we would like to inform you that live demonstration will take place in 30 minutes outside of Hall 5B.
Okay. And maybe in a year or two, maybe in 5 years, some European country or company will provide an email solution able to compete with Microsoft. And at this point, you will need a solution in order to recover your data from Microsoft to put it in this new solution. That's why, for me, keeping the hand of your data is the most critical aspect of any IT solution.
Okay, if I understand you well, you give us the main points of the reason why we should follow this the track to reach the European sovereignty, because actually it's a kind of a third way of digital world. In fact, it's not the Chinese one. Well, we always say tech for control. This is not the Russian one. We sometimes say tech for military. Is not also the US one, which is also known tech for cash. I mean, the European one is sometimes said tech for good, or at least cybersecurity and cloud confidence. It's a kind of putting forward confidence in technologies for citizens at last.
I think there is, in the finance industry, they always say, follow the money. You will see where you're heading to. In the IT industry, it's the same with the data. Follow the data. You will see who is taking benefit of it. There is a sentence we are using, which is also true for all the individuals and for the company. If it's free, you are the product, basically. And many large companies are giving for free their services. And in fact, they are just taking advantages of their position. That's why, from my standpoint, asking to keep the data in Europe is key for our sovereignty.
Maybe we can just pinpoint one thing. I think you have all noticed that Joe Biden, during his last visit in Europe, was fully aware of the impact of the data economy, negotiating during the gas negotiations a so-called new agreement for free flow for data to United States. I think the planet is wide enough, the volume of data is wide enough to have 3, 4, 5 way of thinking the digital economy. Not only an American way, not only a Chinese way, not only a European way. One is not better than the other. It's a question of social model, it's a question of political choices, and a question of, at the end, what is the social model you want to live in? What is 100% sure is that if you don't have your hands on your data, you have no choice at all. I mean, you are not free anymore. And if you are not free anymore, you have no sovereignty, which means that you have no political sovereignty because you have no technological assets to enforce your political choices. So I think everything is linking. It's not a question of saying they are better, they are worse. It's not the case. It's the way you see the world. If you want to see the world and want your kids to have the future they want, they have to own the data. That's all. That's my vision. If they lose the data, they cannot live on another world. They will be slaves.
Maybe do you have some questions? Yes.
You've talked about the need of European legislation, and the Council of the European Union has agreed for the Commission to negotiate an international convention on cybersecurity, and it has agreed for the European Commission to maybe modify European law on data law and digital law in order to adopt this convention. Do you think that could be a threat to European sovereignty?
Well,
Does that make sense?
well,
La modification de la loi européenne, est-ce que c'est une brèche par rapport à notre souveraineté de la donnée, la dernière qui a été convenue?
You mean the agreement or the law?
The law.
Are you talking about Joe Biden's agreement, so-called agreement, or the law?
Now I'm talking about the possibility to sign an international convention on cybersecurity, and the fact that the European Commission, would change European law to make it possible.
No, this is not voted. This is just an agreement, and it has to come in front of the European Commission of Justice to be voted. And that should be a long way. That should be a long way, because the first time, you know that it's not been agreed upon. I mean, that's been disagreed upon. So I hope the Commission will really appreciate the impact that such an agreement will have on the sovereignty of Europe. And you're true, that's a real threat for us, for the whole economy.
moreover, we are still under the Schrems II Court of Justice decision still, even if some talkings are already on purpose, but still today we still are under this court decision obligation. So nothing had really changed. There are lots of talkings at the European level, but still you also have the directive Nice, which is also improving the numbers of economic sectors that should be considered as imperative also. So you have many initiatives. Some might think that we will have a lower way of defending ourselves, but in fact I guess the strategy is also to improve the shield inside the European Union. So I guess we will be talking about it for a while still.
But because you asked the question, we can see that it works. It's very efficient and smart way of approaching problems. I mean, that's what I call the lobbying. It's not done, but it creates confusion. And during this period of time, the people are not moving because they don't know what exactly is going on. So that's a way of creating the confusion, even if it's not legal. And I think that's very interesting that you think that it's done. It's not done.
Maybe another question?
I wanted to ask if you don't think that you mentioned European law, GDPR, and so on, and other regulations, and if by the time the European Union decides on all of the different stuff, the race will already be won, but pretty much any other country doesn't give a shit about freedom, like the US or Russia or whatever, because Gmail has won the game. So it's great that we support freedom, but eventually there's not going to be a lot of room for accelerated pace of innovation in the European Union to catch up with that.
Well, actually, some people told us, I mean, as European people and European lawyers, a few years ago with GDPR, we were told we were crazy to believe in implementing GDPR. And by the fact, most of the countries now are trying to have the GDPR law also, and we also like California, or for instance like Brazil, like some China, and I mean everything is not perfect, but if you have the will to build something much more initiative than all the trust can propose to us as citizens, some of the parts, some on the way you can find paths when you can go further. And we really intend to go further. We don't want to be sovereignist. We just want to be part of the game at the European level, being, I will say, not full. We want to push all the initiatives that could be developed in Europe, because we have also nice companies, nice technologies, and everybody has to cooperate and not be the slave of the other one. In fact, this is a question of social building, in fact, and not only technology. For instance, if you consider the COVID time, all the state of the companies in France were all, I would say, where all the information were only in one foreign cloud. So probably one foreign state could knew any state of the economic sector in France and make pressure to get the technology or to buy these companies back and so on. This is insane, in fact. I mean, we should take care more attention to what our companies are, even in France, even in Europe, and so ever. And this is not being against somebody else. This is just taking care of our own companies, of our own citizens also. And everybody should take care of that, as US probably some try to consider they are doing, in fact, for instance.
And in fact, and it's a good word to, let's say, to approach the conclusion, because we started with this. In the next 18 months, we will double the amount of data. And if I think, for example, to my child, giving up today is like give to the US, but maybe to some private company, all the information of their life of their parents, and can be able to extrapolate on medical data to provide for them or not insurance, and also allow us to access this kind of job or not, because of their history and their ratio. For example, when I see how it goes in China with all the public notation, and see how they are managing the COVID crisis, I'm very happy to have in Europe some regulation in order to protect us, and it's a good reason to fight, I think so. Yeah.
I knew your question would be painful and interesting. Why? Because it's again a question of vision of the world. Europe is an old continent, so we have a slow pace, very slow pace, and the pace is the one of the regulation. It's not a mentality of risk. It's a mentality of protection first and then risk. America is totally different. America is risk first and then we manage. It's just a question of mindset. So Europe is not prepared, and we will not change so fast. We are not prepared to endanger the privacy of the data to innovate. We are willing to make sure that we have the right legal framework and then innovate. And it's different options. Whereas China is also another option. Security first for the population, and it's not better or worse, it's choices. What I'm saying here is that I think the legal framework in Europe, I think it's a strength. It's a real strength. And we can see that once we've done it, other countries such as Africa, India, California are inspired by the legal framework. And that's very interesting. But I should say it doesn't keep pace with the technology acceleration. That's the problem. And this is right. This is why it's painful.
Any other question or a comment? Any sovereignty issues in your own?
Hi there, Alex Lovell-Smith from CCX Technologies. Very specific question regarding the UK. Have you found Brexit has made this even harder? Or has it made no difference? Has it made things easier? Because it's kind of in some industries that we work in, like aerospace, we've found it's created some opportunities that weren't expected, but in other ways it's got a lot harder. So in this, we do platform cybersecurity, so avionics, data networks within aircraft, ships, vehicles, rather than big data, if you like. How has Brexit affected, or how do you think Brexit has affected this relationship and this problem?
I think UK citizens have to choose. Why? For instance, it's not because you're not part of the union that you cannot share the value of the union. For instance, we have a data free flow with Japan. Japan is not a European country. It's another country outside Europe. But we have a data free flow with Japan. So it's to the UK citizens to decide whether their value is closer to the European ones or closer to the American ones. It's a matter of choice. Do not let others decide for you.
And on a business perspective, within the industry, to be honest, right now I haven't seen any difference or difficulties transacting. Maybe at some point for some English or UK company which are based in France and very linked with the public sector, it will be a bit more difficult for them on the IT area. But from our perspective, Luc, we haven't seen any difficulties. Not at this stage. We'll see.
Thank you. One last comment? Any more questions? Well,
Thank you.
I guess maybe? No.
Okay.
Well, maybe it's time to thank you very much for being with us this afternoon.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. And if you have any question, not in front of everyone, but still, you need to ask. We are still here for a while, and otherwise you can contact us by email. Thank you very much.
Thank you.